Okay, so just to begin with, we'll discuss some of our different muscles. Of course, we did talk about our facial muscles first, so I'll kind of start in our lab this week. So I'll kind of start with there. You have your frontalis muscle is superior to your buccinator. Your occipitalis is posterior to your frontalis. You also have your rectus abdominis, which is medial to your rectus femoris. Your deltoid is distal to your pectoralis major. And then you do have your sartorius is anterior to your gluteus maximus. We also wanted to discuss the process of muscle fatigue. So for muscles to do exercise, they do require oxygen. Aerobic exercise requires oxygen and energy, ATP, but you quickly burn through that. There's not enough oxygen to keep up with the muscle movement, so it switches to anaerobic, which means without oxygen. Anaerobic exercise then burns up the glycogen, which then leads to a buildup of lactic acid, and that lactic acid is what actually causes muscle fatigue. We also want to talk about the system of the muscles, the neurons, and the skeletal system. So you do have your neuromuscular joint, which is a chemical synapse between your motor neurons and your muscle fibers. So the motor neurons will send signals to your muscle fibers to contract, and of course that contraction then moves your bones. So that just kind of shows the relationship there. And then we do want to discuss a couple of the different terms that go along with movement. So you do have your origin, is where the muscle is attached to you. It does not move, but instead it pulls the insertion. So the insertion is the one that actually moves or is pulled towards the origin. And then you also do have your extension and flexion. Flexion is, let's say, pulling your arm up. You are decreasing that angle between your arm. Whereas extension, extending your arm, you are increasing that angle between your muscles in your arms. So that is just the two different things that go along with muscle movement. Okay, and here are some of my examples of the different contractions of the muscles. Here are the three major ones. So the first one up here, we have the concentric contraction, where the arm is moving up, so your movement is going up. Your muscle is actually contracting. The next one is the eccentric contraction, so it just kind of shows going from rest to elongating that arm, or that muscle elongates. So our movement is, of course, going down. This would be like a flexion. This is like an extension, to use those terms. And then the final one is showing no movement, or isometric contraction, because the bone or the muscle is still contracting to maintain that weight, but there's no actual movement going on. So those are just three of the main types of contraction there. Okay, and then finally we want to touch on some different types of muscles. So we do have our cardiac muscles, which are found in the walls of your heart. They are striated in appearance, and they're involuntary. We don't have conscious control over those. Second, we have our skeletal muscles that are obviously in our skeletal system. They are also striated, and they are voluntary. We do have control over those. And then finally, we have our smooth muscles, which line our stomach. They are spindle-shaped. Oop, and I can't spell that. And again, these are involuntary. We do not have control over those. So those are just some examples of the different types of muscles in our system.